of heaven on earth.
Yeah.
In the now, where their identities align with what was.
Yeah.
And one of the things that seems to me in ascensions that we have is the seers are seeing things and everything else, but it appears to me because of our mindset, we're processing things and what is, what will be, and we're not really so, and it almost becomes a group think. And because of our mindset, we're kind of, it becomes at times a little bit of hay and stubble. Because of our mindset, because the stuff we're getting from God, we're processing it through our mind, and we're coming out with the same results as we always have.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say, yeah, that's the filters that are often in place, that we think we understand what we're seeing through a sort of confirmationally biased filter. So yeah, we hear God say something and we interpret it the way that we're used to interpreting it. Hence, people still engaged in warfare type things rather than governmental, judicial things. And, you know, and particularly in terms of how we then think about how that is going to be outworked. Yeah, I think there's lots of filters, and that's the process of deconstruction and renewing of our minds, and that brings us into an alignment of God's heart. And I think the key in it all, if we get close enough to the heart of God, the experience that we have in that will create such a challenge to our minds that we'll have to let go of the filters. And if our ascensions are very much more explorational, or we're trying to see things rather than, you know, do we have an agenda when we ascend for engaging God or to engage God for something? And ultimately, when we engage God for something, we're already expecting something from what we're engaging, and that's where it's so difficult to get rid of the filters. If you engage God and it's a relational engagement and you're not looking for something specific outside of the relationship itself, then that relationship can go deeper and begin to change our thinking, because we don't have a filter to try and think, how are we going to do this, or how is this going to sort our problem out, or how are we going to use this to change our city or change whatever we're doing. And I think the more you spend the relational perspective, the easier it is for God to be able to change the filters or show us that we have them. And it can help if you're doing it in a corporate way. It can help to, whenever you do see some things and engage them, to have a set of questions that you use to challenge the assumptions. So and you set them out as ground rules of when we're engaging and when we're sharing what we're seeing, before we're going to look at what that means, we're going to think about these questions. Like, you know, what would be the new perspective of viewing this, or just questions which give you a framework to be able to see whether there are filters in place. Then you have the freedom to pursue things in a much more exploratory way to discover what the meaning really is, rather than, well, we have this, we're going to do this, we've got to do this, and therefore this means this. Ask the questions, you know, create the environment where questions are a good thing, and viewing, you know, are we seeing this through a filter? Well, that's a question. Well, God, show us if we're seeing this through a filter, because we're open for you to show us. And it's not easy, because when I've done corporate things, you can tell whether there's a mixture of soulish stuff in there or not. And sometimes that is an agenda that people have, court cases particularly. It's just like, I'm not sure that was an accusation that came out of heaven. I think that's an accusation that's coming out of your own wound. And woundedness is another thing that can create filters. You know, so I would encourage you to be more open to evaluating and weighing the experience before you wade in with a conclusion, because that's what, let the prophets weigh prophecy. There's a well, what do you think this means? Well, why do you think it means that? Is that a new or old perspective when we view what this was? Just questions like that, which provokes the ability to review what it is you're seeing and allow God to get into unveiling what he really means rather than what we might think he means. But you've got to set the groundwork rules from the beginning with hey, I'm not sure we really understand everything we're seeing. Let's try and find a way of engaging that enables us to pursue discovering these things from a different perspective. Love is another one you can use. Does this align with love? Because someone says, well, we're going to bring judgment onto this. It's just like, well, okay, do you think that's aligning with love? What's motivating you in that? Is that coming from a sense of your own justice? Where is that coming from? And you obviously have to give each other permission to challenge each other in the right way, because that's how culture of honor works. And then you can receive from the person through themselves rather than through their filters, if you have a environment where you can pursue that. And it is important to begin to pursue it. And if people get defensive, then you have to be honest. It's like, I think that's rather a defensive response. Why did that stir your emotions? What was going on inside you when you came back with that response? You've got to be willing to deal with it. Otherwise, these things get buried through fear of offending each other or upsetting each other, and you never get any change. And it can be uncomfortable. I know it can be uncomfortable. But, creating an environment where honor is there, and honor is, I am going to be open to you if you see something or you want to challenge or you want to ask me a question, and I'm also going to be honest with you about what I see and what questions I need to ask. And if you set an environment of openness and honesty, then you'll find honor begins to come forth. And the mindsets that are going to be challenged will be challengeable, because everyone has decided, look, we need to be open for challenge and open to challenge. Otherwise, you do go through the motions and nothing really changes. And it's a scenario that I would, if I look back from where we are now to where we've come from, and know what I know now, I wouldn't have done it the same way. Without a doubt, I would have done things very differently, but you don't know. It's easy to look back. So you've got to go through the journey and discover on the journey ways of dealing with things. So, if I was going to go back to the beginning, or when we established a bench of 3 and 7, I wouldn't have established a bench of 3 and 7. I would have got 10 people together whose heart it was to pursue what a foundation really is governmentally, and spent the time developing the relationship which enabled us to do exactly the same thing as you're talking about. Be open and honest with one another without the pressure of having to manage a whole load of other people and things. But we didn't do that. And I think, we could evaluate where we are now and say that still needs to be taking place more. So how are we going to do that? Because at times you get to a point where you've got to evaluate, this is where we are, this is where we've got here, and this is where God wants us to go, and therefore how are we going to get from here to there? And sometimes you have to look at back of how you got from where you were to where you are now, and look at what lessons can we learn. What are the lessons we can we learn from our journey, and what would we do better and differently if we now knew what we knew then? And that's a good set of questions to evaluate things with, because then it might mean actually we need to redo some of this. We need to reestablish some of this. How are we going to do that? You know, because before God really causes an increase, the foundation has to be right. And sometimes you have to go and re-establish some of the principles of those foundation in that way, you know. It's not easy, but there's no guilt, shame, condemnation for saying, well, we're not really where we could be, or where maybe God would like us to be, or where we would like to be, but that's okay. Let's evaluate so we can get there. What needs to change? How do we do this differently? What difference would we do now? And actually some of that was, what would we do in our ascensions, knowing what we know now, to make them actually be more effective? And begin to, you know, look at some of those things. You know, I think evaluation is a really important thing, but without condemnation, finger pointing, or laying guilt on anybody. It is about honestly evaluating. And if people start to feel that you're pointing the finger at them, then you got to say, well, why? What's going on inside that creates that tension? Because if you can't ask questions, like, well, how's things going? To some person, that here's an opportunity of me sharing, and someone else is, they want to know because they're thinking I've done something wrong. You know, and it's depending on the person of how they're going to respond to a situation, but you can't let people get away with that. If you really want to grow and mature in each other, you've got to challenge that sort of thing. Why are you feeling that someone is accusing you when all they're doing is asking a question? Because if they continue to feel accused, then they'll get defensive and they won't be honest, and therefore they won't really deal with the issues that are there. You know, we might have made a total mess, but hey, let's learn from it. You know, the best ways of growing are through learning from your mistakes. You know, that's the best way, because you do learn. And that's why God allows us to make mistakes, so we can learn from them. He doesn't condemn us for our mistakes. He tries to bring something good out of our mistakes. So if we always look at it from what good can come out of this scenario or this situation, then I think we're in a place to learn and grow. If we're going to defend our positions or maintain those positions because we don't want to change them, then we're not going to change and grow too much. So filters are really important things to deal with. Our minds need renewing, so we can see things from a godly perspective and from the God's heart perspective, not just knowledge. Yeah, knowledge without heart is a dangerous thing. We need to know the heart behind it. You know, the children of Israel saw God's ways, or saw God's works, and Moses saw God's ways. Because God had a face-to-face relationship with Moses, he revealed his ways, what was behind what he was doing. But the children of Israel just saw the things he did and made their own interpretations about what he was doing. And we have the records of those interpretations, which completely misunderstood and misrepresented what God was like. You know, that's why the Old Testament is such a mess when it comes to revealing God, because they wrote their own conclusions to what happened and assigned them to God saying to them in a lot of occasions. You know, so yeah, let's be open to evaluate and be open to change. You know.
Actually, yeah, that's something God kind of revealed to me this morning is that I'm a hands-on learner. Like, you know, I have to actually do something before I actually can do it again on my own. If I don't practice or do it ever, then I can't remember how to do it. So So that's really important. I was listening to someone, and they were saying about how the men in white linen were actually they're actually appearing on the earth now, in to people, and we should be inviting them here. And it's because there's been a shift. And the one thing they said, like, which I never even thought of, is that in the Bible it misinterpreted angels, and they were actually men in white linen at the tomb, and things like this. So that there always have been there. So
yeah, I mean, there's a perspective where the men in white linen, cloud of witnesses, whatever you want to call them, are always around us. So they're surrounding us. So, but that's spiritual in that they don't have a physical body, you know. So if they're going to manifest, their spiritual manifestation will have to take on physical form. The question would be, why would they want to do that? And I know, you know, Ian Clayton's thing is, well, if you don't have a body, you don't have authority on the earth. So if they're on assignment, then what is the purpose of that assignment? I've certainly met a number of them. Have they been physically manifested so that everyone can see them or touch them in that way? Not in my experience, no. But they've certainly come around me and engaged me spiritually, then I can see them in operation and what they're doing. You know, were they some of those that are recorded? Yeah, quite possibly. You know, we find it so easy to, you know, fit something into our theological box. So angels turning up is no problem. And of course, angels did move the stone. You know, there weren't some men in white linen who were trying to push the stone. Angels did do it, but it does indicate that how they're described, or what's described, you know, maybe a mixture of angels or a man in white linen. Now, of course, that's before the cross. That's before the resurrection. So for me, things changed after the resurrection. Obviously, there was a whole load of people who came out of the tombs and did walk around physically and testify to the resurrection. So that was a, you know, odd environment. Now, they came out of the tombs and they seem to have been resurrected physically to wander around. Now, did they have a glorified physical, spiritual body like Jesus? Were they just resurrected physically and then they died? I think they were those that went up, Jesus went back into heaven with, the cloud. You know, they went back, but then he emptied Sheol from that point. So there weren't any people left there. So I think we've got to be careful we don't sort of get sidetracked. You know, it's like what we need to be doing is outworking heaven on earth. And where the men in white linen are assigned, or we engage them and they're actively participating in what we're doing, that's awesome. But what would be the point of one physically manifesting? Because there's no record of it subsequent to the resurrection, other than Jesus. You know, they even thought Peter was his angel. You know, so what would be the point? You know, to me, and sometimes we overcomplicated all this stuff. You know, all these people talking about ages, and we've got to be in this age and that age, and we've got to do this in this age, and we've got to mature into that age. And it's just like, just walk it out every day. Then you don't have to be concerned about what age you're in. You just need to be doing what you're supposed to do today. You know, so I think there is a danger in potentially overcomplicating some of these things and looking for a sign to validate us, or to validate what we're doing, or to give us, wow, that must be really real because it was a physical thing rather than a spiritual thing. And whatever, if there is a sign, what is it pointing to? not what is the sign itself, but what does the sign point to? If it's a wonder, what is it making us wonder about? So I think, the more we begin to come into maturity, the less we're going to need signs. Because there's a sense of, well, if I see it, I'll believe it. So do I not believe it if it's there spiritually rather than physically? Is there any difference to me whether something manifests physically or spiritually? Not really. They're both real. They're both realities. I don't really need a physical manifestation of something. Do I need a physical manifestation of gemstones to believe that there are gemstones in heaven and we can use gemstones on the earth? No. Some people are looking for the sign because they don't believe. So the more you already believe, the less you need a sign, in my expectation. So I think some people who are seeking to invite some of these are actually because they're not really secure in what they believe. They want a sign to confirm it to others. Well, I'm really looking for a sign to confirm it. I just want people to engage themselves and experience it. So I've had quite a lot of involvement with the men in white linen or women in white linen, or, it's a bit of a misogynistic term, really, isn't it? Men in white linen, a cloud of witnesses, let's call them that. And some of them are women. I've engaged with Esther recently and a number of times. There have been experiences where they have been part of the process that God has been bringing us through, and they've come with some insight and understanding for us, or a reminder of some things for us. But I don't necessarily believe we need to see them physically manifested, and that would be any more valid than them being there in the spirit. Otherwise, we were down to, well, I'm not going to believe it unless I see it. In that way, but who knows? I mean, if people are saying that we're moving to a time where this is going to become more obviously happening, why? Would be my question. What is God's purpose in that? What is He wanting to do, or actually, is it people seeking Him to do something?
Yeah. The comment was that they're appearing because they're feeling more comfortable, that heaven and earth are getting closer together, and there was a message when they came that get the people ready.
Well, yeah, that's what Esther said to me. Remind people that they're called for a time such as this. And, so it was like, yeah. But it's the message rather than the messenger that's the point. And would the messenger take people's eyes off the message because they get caught up in the manifestation of something and miss what the message is about? And of course, none of these angels or anything basically are looking to draw attention to themselves. They're there to point us into God's direction. And there is a danger in all those sort of manifestations, whether they be gemstones or feathers or gold dust, that people are just after the manifestation and not really who it's pointing to. People, well, I want to go to a meeting because I want a gemstone. Well, are you not really wanting to go and meet with God? Is that not better than a gemstone? And the danger is potentially always we focus on the sign. And I think that's why, if we're mature, do we need the sign anyway? So I'm not convinced in that whole thing. I think spiritually, yes, there seems to be a much more connection between these things, the angelic realm and everything else. But their physical manifestation, is that more likely because they feel more comfortable, or do they need to physically manifest if we can see them in the spirit? What will be the point of a physical manifestation if we can see them and engage them spiritually anyway? But yeah, don't know. Never seen any turn up physically. I've seen some angels before, physical angels, but certainly not men in white linen. Don't know. Some of it's a little bit like we got to be careful about those things. I think, in that they do not become the focus of what we're doing. They're there to help us in what we're doing, not become the focus of it. Otherwise you'll get the, oh, let's all go to this meeting because men in white linen turn up. It's just like, well, are we not really more keen on engaging God when we come together? Is that not the focus of our engaging, is to encounter God and to experience him relationally in whatever we're doing? And I don't think any of them would even, would want to be involved in taking our eyes off God and putting it on them. So I don't know. Where have they turned up, and in what way? Physically, and how long did they stay? And did anyone catch them on camera? What did they look like?
They said it was like a holograph of light. They saw the outline, and they knew who the person was. But you're not to ask for that any people. You just interact if they show up, basically.
Well, yeah, if they engage. But did every single person see exactly the same manifestation? Because if not everyone saw it, then it wasn't a physical manifestation. It's just a way of people actually perceiving something in the spirit realm. And a lot of people will perceive and experience things slightly differently. When is a physical manifestation, everyone sees it physically, and there's no shimmering thing. It's a physical manifestation. The person is there physically. If you're saying someone was at the tomb clothed in white linen and they were part of witnessing Jesus's resurrection, that was a physical manifestation. That would not have been some shimmering light that may be subjective. A physical manifestation is totally objective. Everyone saw it and could touch them physically. I don't think that's happening, and I don't think that's really necessary to happen. If we're becoming more aware of their presence because we're spiritually connecting to them, then that's fine. I think, yes, they are surrounding us, and therefore you would expect some sort of involvement by their surrounding us.
Mike, just to define men in white linen, that's a physical bodily manifestation of someone from the cloud of witnesses.
Well, that's how it's being described, yeah. I mean, for me, when I've engaged the court of the upright, they're not all dressed in white, for a start. They're dressed in all sorts of things. Like angels are dressed in all sorts of different ways. It seems that when they're on assignment, that's when they're referred to as a man in white linen, but because that's a description of some of the things in the Bible. But when Esther turned up, she didn't turn up in a white dress. She was dressed in, I don't know, some queenly garb, and fragrant and whatever her presence. But she wasn't dressed in white. So I think maybe it's just a misnomer because some have recorded as being in white. Moses and Elijah were radiating light, but they weren't dressed in white necessarily. You know what I mean? It's like there's a difference between radiating light than actually being dressed in a white clothes, And some of what was being seen, were they in white clothes or were they just radiating light that appeared to be white light? And I think that's, we are sort of looking at people recording things 2,000 years ago or 3,000 years ago, and they're recording them in terminology that would make sense to the thing of the day. I mean, it's unlikely that anyone in the first century would have come up with the term of holographic projection, because they wouldn't have known what it meant, or even radiating. I mean, so they use worms like they shone, or they were shining, or, when it comes to the transfiguration, it's like they're using descriptions as best they can to describe what is somewhat of a strange manifestation, so they did their best, but let's not try and over interpret it and then make a theology out of it. Oh, that they're always going to be dressed in white clothes, because I've not experienced them actually ever being dressed in white clothes, to be honest. If I think back, engaged Jacob, he wasn't in. Adam, none of them have been in white clothes. So
the term men in white linen maybe is as simple as someone from the cloud of witness physically manifesting themselves in bodily form, regardless of how they're dressed?
Well, from the reality, there was no cloud of witnesses before the resurrection. So, they wouldn't have been from the cloud of witnesses.
But I meant today to you.
Yes, today.
When Esther showed up, she physically manifested. If your wife was there, she would have seen him too.
No, she didn't. I mean, she was there in the spirit. She showed up spiritually, and those who could engage spiritually were able to perceive me, mostly, because I was looking and she came to talk to me. So
was that just a cloud of, she showed up as part of the cloud of witnesses then?
Well, yeah, because she's now part of the cloud.
She wasn't. See, I'm taking men in white linen means physically manifesting in a bodily form.
Yeah.
And if you don't do that, then you're a cloud of witness. People use terminology, and I'm trying to understand.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I mean, I've never seen someone manifest physically in white clothes, whether spiritually or physically. No one. When I've experienced someone like Bob Jones, I've encountered him. He had clothes on. He looked somewhat, ethereal to a degree. It's difficult to describe, but I recognized him, and he had clothes on. He wasn't shimmering in white in any way, but he also didn't physically manifest. I'm just not sure. I've never seen or heard of anyone physically manifesting. So if they have done, that's okay. But I've never seen one, or I've never heard a record of testimony of anyone else firsthand saying that they saw, I don't know, Joan of Arc or whatever, or these other ones that quite often, they are used to turning up at places as a physical being that you could touch and invite home for a cup of tea or something. I mean, that's not been my experience, and I've not really heard anyone else who said that that's happened as well.
So really, the term men in white linen, because words mean different.
Well, I think it's Ian Clayton's term.
Witness just means the same thing.
Yeah, it's just Ian Clayton's term.
I heard that men in white linen were the people that overcame. So they're like part of there's the 30, 60, 90. So like there's the 10% that are in the inner.
I think that's a stretch.
Yeah, and so that the
to be honest. Because I've also heard that 10% are the end time people of God. Yeah. It's all sorts of different scenarios to what these things could refer to, which sometimes to me just it's unnecessary trying to make an analogy of something, because it always ends up being elitist. Well, I'm part of the 10%. Yeah. And the 60%, they're not as good, and it's like, well, God doesn't view it like that. Yeah. He just views it relationally. So I think, there may be, like, in a biblical term, it isn't a biblical term. If you're looking at Hebrews 12,
that's where
they're talking about the spirits of the righteous made perfect. That's a description. And there are a number of descriptions which I guess are sort of part of ways of thinking but if we tie it all down, then it sort of takes all the mystery out of it. And I think, you know, I don't really need to have it all tied down. I don't think. Yes, we know that according to Hebrews 12, there is a cloud of witnesses surrounding us. And according to Hebrews 12, that we have come to Mount Zion, the city of the living God, the heavenly Jerusalem. We have come, we can touch these things. And some of them are described in there as the spirits of the righteous made perfect. You know, there's a description there, which, you know, I think is given in different forms because it sort of helps us realize that, hey, don't tie it down to one thing. You know,
they quoted Hebrews 11:33 as well, entering perfection through overcoming. So that's where they got the fact that the men in white linen were the overcomers.
Yeah, but he's given the right to all who overcome to sit with him on his throne. According to Revelation 3:21, all who overcome has the right to sit. Well, they were people that he was talking to then. You know, so I think there's, you know, the General Assembly and the Church of the Firstborn enrolled in heaven. Well, they're the cloud of witnesses because we're all one church. They're just operating in heaven and we're operating on earth and in heaven, and we need to work together. I mean, that's basically the gist of it, you know, and it does. So the spirits of the righteous made perfect. So there is this sense of people's spirits, which is essentially who they are, of the righteous, which is how are we righteous? Well, through being made the righteousness of God in Christ, and made perfect. Well, perfect, whole, complete. You know, again, what does perfect mean in that context? And some of that is, well, yes, we should be open to engage them. I think that's the key. Let's be open to engage them. I'm very open to engage them. Do I go to the court of the upright very often? No. I have been sent there and I've gone there sometimes when I wanted to actually see someone particularly. Sometimes they find me out, either in heaven, often, or actually on earth. You know, when they come, when we're gathered in some way. Never experience one personally outside of a gathering because they surround us, not that they surround me. You know, notice that. Therefore, since we have so great a cloud of witnesses surrounding us, let us. So I don't think personally they're all surrounding me as an individual, although they do come and engage me, but I've only ever engaged them in a corporate setting myself. Now, I'm not saying other people might not engage them in other settings. For me, it's always been an us. They're surrounding us, and when we're gathered, they are engageable with us. They engage with us sometimes, and they do observe sometimes. You know, I saw a whole load looking a while ago while we were meeting. I think, oh, well, what are you doing? Well, we're observing. Well, why are you observing? Well, because this is a day where you're going to do something different. Oh, okay. And then we started doing something different, and then one of them ran off, and brought David back. You know, so it's one of those things which I think could be a distraction if we're not careful. Like anything can be a distraction to take our eyes off God. Ascensions can be a distraction if they do not center around engaging God, but are just exploring things without the walking it out. You know, God walked it out, and I think we need to be walking it out in relationship and walking it out together. And should these things occur, not be afraid of them. Hey, yes, we can touch them, but you know, how much we should be seeking it is another thing, you know, unless God gives us some mandate to do it. You know, because would I rather talk to a man in white linen, a cloud of witness, or would I rather talk to God? I'd rather talk to God personally, you know, because that's where my relationship is. with God, I want a deeper, intimate relationship with God. And anything he does using anyone else is still to help me fix my eyes on Jesus, who is the author and perfecter of faith, not the cloud of wind, even though they're surrounding us. And I think this is the key when you look at Hebrews 1:12, since we have such a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside all the things that are robbing us so that we can run this race. But fixing our eyes on Jesus, that is the key to everything. If anything wants to get our eyes off Jesus and onto something else, then I would be questioning what they're doing. Because I've never seen an angel that's ever wanted for me to take my eyes off Jesus and focus on them. They're never wanting to be the focus of attention. That's why you don't get many descriptions of them, because they're not there. They're a messenger. They're there for a purpose. It's the purpose and the message which is important, not the messenger and what they look like. Yeah.
Mike.
Yeah.
Before you were conceived and your spirit was placed in your mother's womb, you existed. Your spirit.
Yeah.
Your spirit, Mike, was it active? Did it have any I understand the soul, that's my consciousness, awareness in that, but my spirit back there, when you're back there in eternity with him, Mike, were you doing anything, or were you just there? And secondly, if I'm up in eternity, why do I need my soul? Because that's my connection with this realm. I don't really need that when I move on to the next realm, do I?
Well, yes, because the next realm and this realm are supposed to be functioning together.
Okay.
Yeah. So yes, you are created to be whole. Yes, my spirit was doing so. I mean, there's various things. Some people would say you were part of God until he released you to come into this realm. That's one view. It's almost like, well, I'm part of God, but I'm not really a distinct personality or spirit. My personal experience is that no, I was doing things. I'm part of being a light being. I was involved with creation, and the more I've reconnected to creation, the more I've discovered where I was connected, and I'm more aware of, and essentially more motivated towards certain aspects of creation, because that's where I was. So if you think of light and you think of creation, everything's formed out of light. And if you think of like the tree of life and Metatron's cube and all these things, the light that we are made up the fabric of those things. And we need to be restored into the fabric of creation, not just separated from it. So it's waiting for us to come into the freedom where we come back into the full knowledge of who we are, so that we can continue to outwork that. So I personally believe that we were involved. Ian Clayton calls it luminaries, involved in some way in the creation process as being part of the fabric of creation. And then we are then given a scroll which reflects this part of our journey, in which we agree to come into a physical body. And then we're now outworking who we were there, actually physically into this realm, to facilitate the restoration of all things and to be sons manifested, with a personality, with a soul, and to be whole. I mean, Adam and Eve obviously had the best of it, in terms of what they had in relationship with God, which was spirit, and their spirit surrounding them. Therefore, they're engaging the world through the spirit rather than through the soul first. So their soul never interpreted anything in independence from God or spirit until they chose to walk in their own intellectual understanding, and now they are then having to figure it out themselves. So yeah, I definitely believe in a pre-existing spirit, in not in this physical realm, but in the spiritual dynamic that we have. It's not like we were in a deep freeze somewhere and we were thawed out to come into this body. That's not really what it was. And I don't believe either that we were just, because God is spirit, we were just part of him and then we sort of separated from him in a way. Although yes, we are spirit and he's spirit, but we are spirit beings, and individual spirit beings.
So someone that doesn't know Christ on this realm, that goes to Sheol at death, spirit goes to God. The reason I get it now. I believe what you're saying is that when their captivity is set free, they join the cloud of witness. This so they can connect with this realm to fulfill their destiny, what was on their scroll.
Well, to be part of, yes, to be part of us.
Yep.
Continuing to outwork that.
Your destiny never is fulfilled. Like you're continuing. The cloud of witnesses are continuing to fulfill their destiny.
Well, they are, yes, but and connected with ours.
With us, yes.
Yeah, because there was a before spiritual destiny, and there's a now spiritual destiny, and there will be a continued spiritual destiny. It's just how it worked in different ways. So if anyone who physically dies, they have an opportunity of continuing to outwork that in a different realm, connected to this realm, and they were outworking that before in a realm connected to this realm. It is all part of it.
I had the opportunity a few weeks ago, a meeting with a guy I hadn't seen in a couple of years that goes to heaven. His wife left her job just to focus, as he would say, 24 hours a day with the Lord. And I also met a weekend ago with a lady that lives on a farm in Solitude. Was going to heaven 15 years ago, and she spends about 10 hours a day with the Lord. So I was really excited in both cases, like, wow, what am I going to find out? And it was interesting. It appeared to me, neither had progressed that far. There was a great presence of God around them.
Yeah.
When I was with the lady that was 10 hours a day with the Lord on her farm, doesn't work the farm, it's a family farm. When I talked about her garden, she went, boom, it was no problem. That she went into her garden, met Jesus, even though she was going up the throne, things opened up because, again, she was ready for it. So, but here's what really sticks for me: the importance of being together, not locking ourselves away. Two is that, people are looking for God to do something, and all of a sudden this is going to roll out. I think it's one-on-one conscious awareness. So your conscious awareness brought us into our garden. We became consciously aware that our conscious awareness is bringing other people into their garden, and it just rolls. It's going to roll out more like that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think God really wants us to be hermits that are not relationally connected. Otherwise it's not relational, is it? It's just like, it's a bit like, oh, well, if it doesn't effectively bring something from heaven to earth through our lives, then what point is there? Seems to be very self-centered if it's not actually benefiting anybody else. And there's a danger not a danger, but it's like, okay, well, what's she doing for 10 hours? And what difference is it making to the earth? Because, what's the testimony? What's the fruit of that testimony of 10 hours with God every day? If I was spending 10 hours with God actually consciously every day, I would expect there to be evidence of that. In my own life, in my own family, in where I'm living, in what I'm doing, to have an effect. Because I know what spending a few hours with God every day has an effect. So 10 hours, but then you can spend what's she doing for the other 14 hours? Sleeping? What's she doing? Some of it would be okay, well, give me some evidence that what you're doing has produced some fruit. Because Jesus said, well, it's the fruit that's going to reveal whether something's of me or not. Not, so if that's her mandate and God's called her to spend 10 hours with him every day and to do nothing else, well, you just got to trust, okay, fine. There's got a purpose in that. But has she just chosen to do that? Because that for her is her soaking. And she's really thoroughly enjoying spending 10 hours with the presence of God. But is anyone else benefiting from her 10 hours with God? Because we are governmental in sonship, not just relational. So what's she doing in a governmental perspective? Because essentially that's what sonship is. We're seated with Christ in heavenly places. What's she doing? What are her encounters? What's her experience? Does she have a deeper revelation of God and God's love in such a way that she's getting the filters removed? So when you talk to her, she's still got as many filters as anyone else.
That was my what I picked up from either party is that there's a real presence of God on both. I didn't think there was the growth. I was kind of, I don't know, not disappointed,
yeah,
but they hadn't really progressed, especially into any of the areas of government, but just into other things. They were doing the same thing, going up to the throne, or in her case, all the time. It was real, but now, mind you, she was very open. Boom, right? It was like anything that, say, we became consciously aware of, she was easily able to step into it when we were up there with her. But the fact is that it wasn't something that she was able to discover on her own. And I think that's one of the reasons why you need other people.
Yeah.
Kind of tunnel vision.
Yeah, maybe.
The problem is, unless your mindset changes, how can you go any further anyway?
Well, yeah.
You ended up just soaking kind of anyway. Then.
Well, yeah. Obviously you don't want to make a judgment because you don't know what God said to her and what God's saying to her. Ultimately you would hope that would have some benefit elsewhere other than to her. I don't know. I mean, obviously I know when I engage God, our conversations and our encounters and our experiences are about me maturing to a place where I become operating and arising as a son. That's, I don't think that's just me. I think sonship is part of, the whole point is we're part of God's kingdom government. I don't know, without talking to the person
but in fact, that's what the monks did.
Yeah.
Throughout the last 2,000 years.
Yeah, but they did change some things on earth as well. There was some outworking of some things in which they did bring about change and transformation in some ways. So yeah, for me it would be I would like to ask questions in terms of what changes have taken place since they've been spending 10 hours a day with God. Do they know him any better? So I would ask questions. Well, how do you view, the God's judgment? And from that answer, I would know very clearly whether they had been spending any intimacy with God and it had changed their view of God's love.
Well, she knew everyone went to heaven.
Well, that's a good thing then.
She already realized that 10 years ago.
Yeah, well, that's a positive thing that she's been spending time with God. But has she been involved in the process of that? Or she just knows it?
Yeah.
Is God preparing her for something else? Who knows? Who knows? I mean, but if she knows that, then, she's obviously connected intimately with God. You don't know what her own circumstances, situation is. Does she need a huge amount of ministry of bringing her to a place of wholeness before God will then call her to do something else? Who knows?
Yeah.
And that's the main thing. But I do believe ultimately sonship is a don't know where that's coming from. That sounds like cricket to me. Who knows? Anyway. So yeah, it's a thing that if you just get caught in relationship without it maturing you to a position of sonship, then when God wants to reveal us as manifest sons of God on the earth. So there's got to be something which changes how we live, how we do things, that we are a reflecting heaven on the earth. We're a gateway of heaven into the earth, which enables us to bring about that answering creation's groan. But everyone's got a mandate that they need to pursue. So at the end of the day, you can't make a judgment on someone else's mandate.
But even if you look at what people are doing today, government is actually, people coming into government is actually kind of a slow roll. It's not really.
Yeah. It is, because I think the level of maturity necessary for real government takes time. So that we will govern from the intimacy of the heart and the love of God, not out of our own understanding. And that is why the filters and why the mindsets need to be changed, so that we will be moved by the heart of God and in it all, rather than our own perspective. It's so important. We go back to the very beginning. How much of what we're doing is through the filters of our own perspective, and the more time we spend in intimacy, those perspectives change. But I think it should run hand in hand with us learning about the governmental side of it as well. Because I think that's what sons do. We're here to fulfill the mandate: be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth, subdue, and rule. So maybe, some people have to spend 10 years or something in the process of preparation for being brought onto the stage. Joseph was in a prison before he was brought onto the world stage. Jesus was in a, builders, merchants, whatever, for 18 years before he came onto the world stage. Sometimes maybe people's process is a lot longer, and some people are in that place of obscurity until they're thrust out into the world stage in a way which others who've not spent that time in that preparation time will be able to be. Who knows? Who knows what the future will hold for someone who spends 10 hours with God every day.
Would you not expect to see, as this progresses, that the vast majority will come into benches, ecclesias, governments, forming governments?
Well, you would hope so, because I think, for me, we're seated with Christ in heavenly places, everybody. Well, what are those places? That's not being before the throne, that's being on a throne. Well, being on a throne sort of indicates ruling. Nowhere does it say that everyone can be before the throne every day, but it does say we are seated in Christ in heavenly places. So there's a function to it as well as the experience of it. But I would certainly hope that would bring about us coming into what sonship means for the whole of creation, whatever that means.
Because that's the only way we're going to come into an open heaven over our mountains of responsibility.
Yeah, absolutely.
By taking government over them. So unless we do, I don't think we're going to be treading water to a degree.
Well, yeah, but that's, for me, is why I'm trying to teach relationship and responsibility that go hand in hand. Yeah. Because that's the key. If you just soap for the rest of your life, well, okay, what benefit is that for anyone else? And if you try and do all the governmental stuff without having the relational heart of God, then you're going to do it wrong. Yeah. And dangerously, probably. So you need both to go hand in hand and both to outwork in that way together. But everyone's journeys obviously are different. And so some people may take more time there to bring them into that place, and some people will do it. For me, it was a process that I did simultaneously, of the relationship and the inside out change and transformation, and also the engaging in different realms of heaven as I matured. So being a living sacrifice for me was me yielding my life to the government of God. Me engaging in transformation was me being made whole so that I would be able to do that as a son of God. And so they had a slightly different perspective. You know, when I was a living sacrifice, I'm surrendered. I don't have my own agenda. And so they ran parallel. What God was doing inside out, he was also taking me outside in, effectively into the different realms of heaven. And that living sacrifice process opened up realms of heaven where that transformation could take place, as well as the transformation that was taking place because he's in me. So he's in me and I'm being transformed. I'm in heaven and I'm being transformed. But they have slightly different functions. One is more my identity and one is my position. But I still need to be transformed to occupy that position. You know, so it's my choice as a living sacrifice to lay down my agendas. When I invite him into my presence, it is so his presence begins to transform me into his image in terms of relationship as a son. But when I'm in the realms of heaven as a living sacrifice, he's my high priest and he can do whatever he wants to help me come into my position in sonship, which is how I would see the two pathways. Because I'm just sort of starting on that relationship pathway in the Engaging God program, to which, you know, I'm starting with, you know, a short sessions on living sacrifices that sets up, you know, the process. Because if we're going to go into the realms of heaven and we're not living sacrifices, then our position is going to be limited, our authority is going to be limited, because we haven't surrendered the agenda of why we want to be in heaven to his purpose. It can still be mine.
Even in that exercise that you did on Sunday where you left your spirit at your mountain, I'll let you go on a side. The fact was, so that, and you became consciously aware. The fact is your spirit was already there. Always.
Yeah, oh yeah, totally.
And the fact is you're just taking it so that now you're becoming consciously aware here on earth.
Yeah, just shifting focus to become conscious of what I'm doing already in the realms of heaven. Yeah, that's the dual realms living, because what I'm doing in the realms of heaven is benefiting, flowing into me on the earth, but sometimes you want to engage there consciously.
Which allows you to move more into the spontaneous flow of now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
It's a goal. Walk in the spirit.
All good. Okay, I need to leave it there. I've got another